Welcome to our video series on endangered wildlife conservation. My name is Kirkpatrick. I am a long-term wildlife conservation enthusiast and a career environmentalist. My background includes hosting a local PBS TV program on environmental awareness, and I am very familiar with zoo animals, exhibits, and related conservation programs. So why should we be concerned about Mother Nature and its wildlife inhabitants? Well, we've lost about half of our native wildlife on Earth since the beginning of the century. Not only that, but it is predicted and estimated that we could lose 50% more of what we have left by the end of this century. So that's a major reason for concern. So what is an endangered animal? An endangered animal is considered one that has risk of extinction throughout its normal native range. So what we're talking about is their home, where they eat, where they live, where they mate and raise their young. That habitat doesn't really exist and has serious risk of extinction. Why have we had all these dramatic wildlife losses? Well, the major reason has been habitat loss, the loss of their homes, of their ranges, of where they exist. Certainly, there have been many other reasons, including illegal pet trade, invasive species, pollution, exploitation of our land and resources. And over the next 50 years, we expect there's going to be a very dramatic impact upon our wildlife from climate change. So the International Union for the Conservation of Nature tracks the future of our biodiversity and of our animals. And they have a red list of tracking threatened species. And there's 7 categories that they use to track our threatened animals, from least concern all the way through to fully extinct, like the passenger pigeon that no longer exists on Earth. So if we go through these 7 categories, least concern to near threatened, to vulnerable, endangered, critically endangered, just like the orangutan was put into that category this last year, extinct in the wild, which means there might be a few in captivity that can be used for recovery programs, and again, all the way to fully extinct. So with that introduction in mind, welcome to our series. Today, let's talk about cats. In particular, 2 cats, the Jaguar and the Snow Leopard. I love these cats. I love cats anyway. But there are actually 38 species of cats worldwide. They've been on Earth for the last 30 million years. For the last 10 million years, the domestic cat has evolved. And it started with a small African cat and has, of course, developed over the thousands of years into a multitude of different cat species. The interesting thing, though, about numbers of cats is there's about 600 million domestic cats worldwide. And that's more than there are all of the other 37 species of cats. So at any rate, if we take a look at the Jaguar, it's a beautiful cat. And if we look at this picture of it, I like to talk about the spots in particular. You notice that the spots are kind of roseates, and they have like a dot in the middle in most cases. Only the Jaguar has that kind of spot. And another one of these little humor things, did you know that Jaguar is the only leopard that can change his spots? Well, actually, some of the others can too. But I was at the zoo the other day, and I saw him move from one spot to another spot. But if you take a look at this animal, he's a very robust, sturdy cat. He's the world's 3rd largest cat, but he is the strongest cat. And if you notice the cat too, how broad his jaw is, this cat has the strongest bite and jaw strength of any cat. So if we go over here and take a look at this other picture, just to demonstrate how strong this cat is, if you'll notice that there's a pretty large caiman or alligator. And you notice that the jaguar can easily kill that by grabbing it, skull, at the base of the neck and crushing it. So we talked just a little bit about where these cats are. Now, in the old days, before we got populated with lots of people moving into North and South America, in the United States, these cats were quite prevalent in Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. Not so today, and we're going to talk more about that in a little bit. But they do range all the way down to Central America, South America, all the way to northern Argentina. And they're still doing pretty good. I'd say about 50% of their original range is gone. But they're considered to be vulnerable, but not really faced with extinction. And so where do they live? If you follow the chains of mountains all the way from Central America down through the Andes, they like forested areas. They like to be protected in areas where they really can't be seen. And so we still have the Amazon rainforest, another great area for jaguars. The other thing about jaguars compared to the other cats, most cats don't like water. They only swim when they absolutely have to. These guys swim very well. And they hunt by following the waterways or where the marshes are. They not only look for the alligators and the caimans and reptiles, but any other thing that they can find and eat. If you've been to the Albuquerque Zoo, you might be familiar with the capybara, which is the world's largest rodent. It's about that high and it's pretty big. And they're pretty prevalent down through South America. They're a favorite tasty food for our jaguars. And so they eat a lot of smaller things. They'll eat birds, bird eggs, anything that kind of comes along their way. So let's talk a little bit about the plans to save these animals. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has recently proposed a recovery plan for these that are in the Western Hemisphere. And the animal right now has rarely been seen in the United States, but has been seen, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. But the idea is to try to get them to come back to the Southwest United States. And the way they envision it is not actually taking the cat and reintroducing it to its native areas, but rather there's a natural population of jaguars about 120 miles south of Arizona in Sonora, Mexico. They're fine down there, they're national parks, they're protected. And the idea is through education, why did they disappear? Well, they mostly disappeared because ranchers and people were concerned about them killing livestock. And so they were shot, they were pretty much driven out of this country. So part of getting them to come into certain places in the United States is education. The other part of it is to have habitats that are conducive for them to survive and raise their young. The hope is maybe in 50 years we'll see them, but again, what about those that have come into the United States? Since 1996, there have been 7 jaguars sighted along the border with Mexico. So how do they do the sightings? Mainly by motion detection cameras that are set up in areas where they think the jaguar might come across. And in the last couple of years, there have been 2 sightings, including one that ended up in Tombstone, Arizona. So yes, there used to be quite a few jaguars, there are not many now, but they're vulnerable, but they're holding their populations well in most of South America. So they're beautiful animals, and that's a little bit about the jaguar. So we're going to talk about the snow leopard. These are beautiful cats. I love to talk about the snow leopards. First of all, what's the difference really between a jaguar and a leopard? thousands and thousands of miles. Yes, the Jaguar is only in North and South America, but the leopards are all in Asia and Africa. So they're separated by quite a long distance. The snow leopard is a large cat, native to the mountain regions of Central and Southern Asia, including the Himalayas. And it's defined as vulnerable in terms of its extinction status by the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. And there's estimated to be probably fewer than about 10,000 of these cats left in the world. So let's take a look over here just to show you where these cats are. It's all of the reddish areas, and certainly you can see the Himalayas and those mountain regions of the world. So let's move over here to the cat, the snow leopard. Like I said, I just love these guys. And you'll notice that they have very long fur. They have these gorgeous tails that have thick fur. They can wrap around their nose and coil up in them in the cold climates. I also like their beautiful blue eyes. They're really neat looking cats. And if you see a snow leopard, you gotta see what the babies look like. It's a little picture over here of a snow leopard kitten. And this is kind of neat because we actually raise these cats at the Albuquerque Zoo. We have a mommy and daddy snow leopard that had 12 kittens between them. And the mother died, but I think we still have some cubs at the zoo. And it's a good place to go and see them and watch them because they're really quite amazing animals. So what really threatens their existence? First of all, if you can imagine only 10,000 animals over that large area I showed you, these cats are solitary. A lot of cats are solitary. Tigers out in the wild are usually out by themselves. They come together when they can smell the pheromones of a female 20 miles away to mate, but generally speaking, these animals are quite solitary. So they're out there over these very large distances. The other thing is they're very vulnerable to poaching. You see how beautiful their fur is and how valuable the pelts are. But the other main thing is if you look at this part of the world, the people are very poor. You're talking about tribes that have some livestock, and that cow or sheep that they have is cash in hand. These people only make about $2 a day. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the efforts to save these animals. We'll talk more about how we actually help save these animals. Let's talk a little bit about what they eat. These guys are up in the mountains, and their favorite food are things like blue sheep. That's a unique species of sheep to the Himalayas in that area, and the mountain ibex. So in plain words, they like to eat wild goats and sheep. And these guys can jump 20 or 30 feet. They're excellent predators. They know how to sneak up on their prey. They'll eat smaller things. I mean, they'll eat hares, which are rabbits, marmots. They'll even eat game birds when they can, but certainly these larger cats like larger prey. So I'll talk a little bit more now about the conservation efforts. And it's really a very successful conservation effort. It's called the Snow Leopard Trust. And so they work in the countries where we have the highest concentrations of snow leopards. These snow leopards are located in 12 different countries, but 5 of these countries have 75% of the world's population of snow leopards. So that's where the trust works. They form partnerships with the local tribes to educate them on the importance of this species. It's not only education, but I think I mentioned that these herders, a lot of them only earn $2 a day. So they actually reimburse them and pay. Nothing like a little bit of money to make them not want to go out there and kill the snow leopards. So it really helps at one time to work with them to break their cycle of poverty by teaching them how to grow and have other foods. But on the other hand, we're really saving the snow leopards. So I always like to add a little joke or two about it. But like, for example, which side of the leopard has the most spots?
Which one?
The outside.